Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video where I wrap up this time the last 2 weeks worth of reading rather than the last 7 days worth of reading, just because last weekend was very hectic. And this video will show why I try and film these weekly, because when they get to 2 weeks long, they get really long. So get yourself a drink, a snack, get comfy. We're going to talk about the last 2 weeks worth of reading. Thankfully, there is a stack of books that featured in various vlogs, like my Christmas in July vlog, like my annotation vlog, and there is also another one coming out later this week, which is a themed vlog. So that broke it up a little bit. Otherwise, this list would have been much longer than it actually currently is at the moment. I am briefly going to mention 3 review copies that I read this week. These are all kids' titles. So there is a graphic novel picture book called Leaflight by Tracy Bella. This is a story about caring for each other. This is about a community who start quite literally taking down the fence between them, and there are all sorts of amazing people and families in this book. People who live different ways, people who live in truck houses, and people who live in single parent homes. You have parents who foster injured wildlife. It is set in Australia. It is absolutely beautiful. It does include beautiful First Nations culture and language in this book as well, and the art style is just stunning. Tracy Bella has done a few books in this style and I have not read all of them, but this one was sent to me by Alan and Unwin to review, so I'm very grateful to them. I will be picking up the other ones that I can find in the school library very soon, so loved this. Then there is The Champ Volume 3, which is The Champ versus the Werewolf Warriorz by Ando. This is the 3rd book in the Champ serial series. And in this one, we have Summer, who has been gifted some special abilities in that she is good at pretty much any sport that she plays now. Her brother is in a wheelchair and it is nearly his birthday and his phone is not working and he is raising her. And so she decides that she wants to go to the local fair to win the grand prize, which is a brand new phone for her brother for his birthday. The only catch is she has to try not to overuse her abilities so that people find out her secret identity. And of course, the local villain is determined to find out who the champ is, and so targets the fair and the people who are at the top of the score ladder. So a really fun serial series, some great representation in here. And then the last review title that I had from Alan and Unwin was Jawsome 1, which includes 2 stories, Stage Bite and Finvestigated. And this is the story of a group of sharks who are all friends at school, but secretly they are in a band called Jawsome, and there are various goings on. The first one is about one of the members of the band leaving, and so someone else has to step up as the lead singer. And Finley is the shark who is nominated to do that job, except he gets terrible stage fright. And the second story is about someone who is trying to uncover the secret identity of Jawsome and reveal that to the public. So it was a really cute, really fun story. I had a thoroughly good time with this. It was just the right amount of fun and funny and a little bit silly, but with some awesome characters and tons of shark facts thrown in, because all of the friends are different types of sharks. And so the author really plays up their personalities to match what kind of shark they are. So really, really fun little story. I won't talk about this one much because I have a vlog specifically on my annotating of the rest of the story, but I did read it again because I'm clearly behind on my every other month reading of this, but we're up to 4 this year, so we're going strong. I also read Love and Autism by Kerr. This is a non-fiction collection of stories about 5 autistic individuals and their experiences of familial, friendship, platonic, and romantic love throughout their lives. And it is a really, really interesting read. Kerr herself is autistic and she has interviewed 5 other people and gotten their stories. Their stories are fun and funny and at times heartbreaking and just so full of hope, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading this. It's a very easy read. So the book is broken into sections, and in each section we get the story of all of the 5 people that Kerr interviewed, as well as essays from Kerr herself, or especially along her journey of discovering that she was autistic. I really related to this book in a very, very big way, so I can definitely recommend it. I also got an ARC copy of Glimmers of You by Cowles. This is the most recent book in the Lost and Found series. It is book 3. This is the story of Gray and Caden. Gray is the younger sister of 4 brothers who this family is the core group of this series. And because she is the only girl, she's very much used to for very overprotective brothers. And this is a small town brother's best friend romantic suspense story with some fake dating elements. We also have type 1 diabetes representation in the book. There's also some panic attack representation on the page as well. But Gray has lived her entire life in this small town. As a teen, she was diagnosed with diabetes, which was a really scary time for her and her family, and also for Caden, who was her brother's best friend, but also a really close friend of hers. His family owns a hotel and resort empire, and so he is quite well off, but he is sick of having to play to his father's game plan, which his father plays Caden and his brother off of themselves. And this causes some really complex, very unhealthy familial relationships within the story. As I said, they're romantic suspense stories. So Gray and Caden end up fake dating when one of Gray's exes doesn't really let up. She has said, no, we're not going out anymore. I'm just not feeling it. And, you know, we're better off just friends, but the other guy won't let it up. So despite being estranged and genuinely nitpicking at each other, Caden suggests that he pretends to be her fake boyfriend, so the other guy gets the message that she's moved on. And so they go along with this for a little while. However, someone begins targeting Gray, so there is a stalker element in this story, and you get a lot of those scenes that can be quite uncomfortable to read when someone is obsessed with another person. So do go into this being aware of that. The other content warning in here is there is discussion around the death of a sibling, which is historical off-page but is included in the book. So just be aware of that and be kind to yourself when you're reading the book. Thank you to the author for the review copy. I had a great time reading it. I think I was saying in my TikTok review of this book that Catherine Cowles has a formula, and I don't always think that's a bad thing. I actually quite like formulas in books because there is a comfort, particularly going into something like a romantic suspense where you know the kind of beats that are going to be hit that make it more comforting to read, despite the fact that it might feature some darker themes. Not that it's a dark romance, but it does have darker elements to it. So I quite like that. I don't know, maybe I'm the only person, but if you like Catherine Cowles' other books, you'll definitely enjoy this one. I also read another one of my top 5 books of the year, and that is Role Playing by Cathy, Yardley. I can't believe that I read this 2 weeks ago and that I haven't talked about it since then because I loved this book. So this is about a couple who are 48 and older, so 48 and 50, and they meet while playing in the same online gaming guild. Maggie is 48, her son has just gone off to college. She was a single mum, and so she's suddenly left on her own, and she is very much a house gremlin, to borrow Bree's term, and she just likes to stay at home. She doesn't like to socialize, but her son is trying to encourage her to get out there, especially now that he's gone. We also have Aidan, who is the leader of the guild, and he is 50. He is a nurse by trade, but has come home to care for his aging mother. And his mother is not my favorite person in this book, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But these two meet online. His online gaming name is Otter. She chooses the name Bogwitch. She plays up that she is much older than everyone else in the guild because she thinks that she is playing with college-age kids. And because she plays that up, everyone thinks that she's an octogenarian. But when Aidan is injured, because she knows they all live in the same town, she offers to bring him some soup, and that's when they meet face to face for the first time and get the shock of their life when they realize they're closer in age than they first thought. And that's where their romance starts. And it is utterly delightful. Like, this book is great. I want to be Maggie when I grow up. She is grumpy and snarky and she doesn't take anybody's crap. And I loved her to pieces. Like, she is one of my all-time favorite heroines. She is delightful. The thing is funny. There are heartbreaking scenes in here. Maggie and her son have a fantastic relationship, although she doesn't have a really good relationship with her ex-partner. And Aidan has a really strained relationship with his family. His brother married his ex-girlfriend. His mother has never quite forgiven him for that. And on top of that, Aidan is bisexual. His family is not only homophobic, but biphobic as well. And I will preface that there is a forced outing scene in this book. It is the worst, but it's also the best scene because Maggie is a queen. She lets it rip at the person who forcibly outs Aidan. This book is everything to me, like everything. This is going into my reread and annotate collection because I want to read this again. I also read Scoring Chance by Teagan Hunter, which is the 5th book in the Carolina Comet series. It was the final book in the series that I had left to read, and it is up there in my top 3 of the series because I love Miller with all my heart. So this one has been building for a couple of books. Miller is the rookie on the team, and he is just obsessed with Scout, who is the owner of a donut food truck. And he has a habit of putting his foot in his mouth every time he is around her. And so in the previous book, he's managed to insult her without intending to. And so he spends a good part of this book trying to make it up to her and proving just how much he is enamored with her. He is the sweetest cinnamon roll golden retriever hero. He talks a mile a minute, but he is great. And Scout is up there as well. She owns this donut truck, but she is also an aspiring romance author. The scenes in this book that I loved the most were them just helping each other out without even asking if the other person needs help. They just do it, and I love it. It was so sweet and adorable, and I love this series. Like, this series is great. Yes, it is a contemporary hockey romance series, but I think I've said it every time I've talked about these books, they just feel a little bit different. They're super quick reads. They're very easy to read. The characters are delightful and a little bit quirky and fun. And it just sets it apart from some of the other series. I feel like they don't take themselves as seriously as some other books. And I deeply appreciate that at times. I also read Game Changer by Reid. This is the first book in the Game Changer series, which is very popular for the second book in the series, Heated Rivalry. But I could have started there, but did I start there? No, I started at the first book. This is an hockey romance series. It's sort of one of, I don't want to say it's one of the OG ones, but it's definitely one of the ones that's up there as everyone recommends this book if you start talking about hockey romances, which, to be honest, is probably why I have stayed away from it for 6 months. This one is the story of Scott, who is the captain of an NHL team who happens to go to this juice bar before one of his games. And he's served by Kip, who makes him a drink. And after that, he wins the game. And suddenly going to this juice bar before home games becomes part of his routine because, you know, that's the thing with hockey players. They have routines and they keep trying to do what worked for them the last time. He's also deeply attracted to Kip, and the two end up in this relationship, but it's a secret relationship because Scott is not out in the NHL and he loves being with Kip. Kip loves being with him, and initially they make that secret relationship work, but eventually it obviously becomes much more of a strain on Kip than it does on Scott, and Scott is forced to make a decision about whether or not he comes out. Not that Kip is forcing him to, it's more that, you know, Kip is happy to, well, he's not happy to walk away from the relationship, but he will walk away from the relationship because he can't be forced back into the closet and he can't go anywhere in public with Scott. And that's what's weighing on him, not the fact that Scott won't come out. He understands that part of it. But it does come down to Scott deciding what he wants and when he's going to choose to come out. And of course, like, they're in the playoffs and he thinks that's the worst time to do it and whatnot. There were some really interesting dynamics in here, and Kip is just, I love Kip. He was so adorable and fun and just a character who's an ordinary person trying to make their way in the world and navigate this weird, quasi-famous circumstances that he finds himself having to deal with because of who he has fallen for. But yes, I did enjoy it. The writing is really good. I do want to read Heated Rivalry because that is supposed to be, well, I think it's said to be enemies to lovers, but I think it's probably going to be more like rivals to lovers. But I am interested. Stay tuned, that will happen soon. I also read my rare pick for the month. Hallelujah, I finally did something off my TBR. That is the first 2 books in the Kings of Mayhem series by Penny D. The first book is Kings of Mayhem, and then there is Brothers in Arms. This is kind of like a duet. You can just read the first book, but there is a little bit of a cliffhanger, not necessarily with the couple, but with the circumstances they find themselves in. So the second book does continue their relationship. As I said, it is an MC romance, so all of the content warnings that you would associate with an MC romance, which is obviously on the darker side, come into play here. So this is the romance between Indy and Cade. They were childhood and teenage sweethearts. Both their fathers were members of the Kings of Mayhem MC. Right before they were due to go off to college together, Indy catches Cade cheating, and so she leaves him. And that is in the past. And in the present day, she is returning home because her father has died and she is attending his funeral, which throws her back into the orbit of the Kings of Mayhem MC, where she has left behind her family, her friends, everyone when she left town. And so it's complicated for her being back there and for seeing everyone, particularly Cade. But obviously they still have feelings for one another. And Indy is trying to reconcile, does she even want to be with him because she knows what he is capable of? And there is a story behind that because I am not a person who reads books about cheating. Cade is desperate to win her back. Indy is determined to leave as soon as the funeral is over. However, someone begins targeting the Kings of Mayhem MC throughout the book, and so Indy is forced to stay, and she and Cade are forced to work through their history and their feelings for one another. The sort of storyline that is set off in this book is continued in here. The threat to the MC and members of the MC being targeted and killed. The second book is more of solving that mystery and solving that crime, but it does also follow up with sort of the resolution to Cade and Indy's story. So it is good to read them both together. Thankfully, the second book is very, very short. They were very easy reads. So I'm really glad that I read them. And thank you to Penny for recommending This Is Where I Start. And the final book that I'm going to talk about is another book called Game Changer, and that is Game Changer by Amy Aislin, which is the second book in the Vancouver Orca series. So this is the illustrated cover edition, which also has illustrations inside, which I deeply appreciate. So this is the story of Blair, who has spent years in the AIHL, and he is determined to see that this year is the year that he gets called up to the NHL. And if that doesn't happen, he's going to reevaluate his career path. He is doing a million and one things. He's playing hockey, but he's also supporting his family who run a deli. He is trying to run a digital design business. He is constantly on call to his sister to help out with his niece. And all of these things mean that he's constantly late or forgets things. And so one of his coaches suggests that he gets a PA and recommends a cousin of his to be the PA because his cousin needs the extra cash. This PA is Charlie, who is awesome. This is Charlie. He is delightful. He is a baker for the NHL hockey team. He also has dreams of having his own baking business, and he finds himself in a bit of financial trouble when he ends up having to take over the payments of the apartment that he lives in. And so he needs the extra cash. And so he begins to work for Blair. But the only problem is they're both very, very attracted to one another. And Charlie is conflicted because he doesn't want to be in a relationship with someone who is paying him, and they have to work through that. Blair has to work through a lot of things with his family, including being able to say no to them at times and realizing that they are taking advantage of him because he drops everything the second they call. And there are some really good scenes with his family are lovely, and they fully admit to doing this, and then they also commit to making changes throughout the book, which is great because poor Blair is just run off his feet. Charlie is trying to get this baking business off the ground, and he gets this offer to go to host a market stall at a local market with his jars and cakes, which I would probably suggest having cake on hand while reading this book because there's a lot of cake talk. Thankfully, I am not a huge cake person, so I didn't get too hungry, but if you like cake, you might want to have something on hand while reading this book because they sound absolutely delicious. Anyway, it was fun. It was cute. I really enjoyed it. I'm enjoying this series. I think it's just a really enjoyable, fun book. And we get so many cameos from the first book in the series through all the coaches and whatnot. And also, I'm beginning to suspect that this series is going to follow Charlie's family, who are all somehow involved in this hockey team. And I'm okay with that. All right, so those are the books that I have read in the last 2 weeks. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of them or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Alternatively, feel free to share any other books that you have been reading that you have enjoyed in the comments below. Or if you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to share a cake emoji. I hope wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.